Welcome, everyone, on the inside of another Take Your Power Back Now podcast. Today, we are talking about hormones. Oh, my goodness. The topic of all topics. And it's certainly been a journey for me. Joining me is an amazing expert, Judith Crabtree. She has 55 years in women as a women's health care nurse practitioner, specializing in women's, can I say this word, in endocrinology, and a
You got
couple.
it.
I got it. A couple. I
You
gotta
got
share.
it.
I want to tell a really quick story because I want to just highlight Judith here. But it's important to know that in the last 6 years, my journey looking at hormones, it's like I'm 46, so this whole big dreaded, oh my God, the hormones are gonna get you, and the fear around it, and this kind of slow sneaking up of like losing your brain power. And
Hmm.
a couple of months ago, I decided, yeah, we're gonna get into this. We're gonna confront this, and maybe it is hormones. Maybe I should see a specialist. And then what do I do? And what do I take? And it's so much fear. I mean, even for my family members. And I got on the phone with Judith, and she's like, "Well, listen, here's what you need to start with." And I finally got on these bioidentical hormones, and I can tell you something. It is a game changer. It's like having your brain back. And so, like, being able to think, being able to have energy, not having to have a nap at the end of the day, not feeling so overwhelmed with just simple things. This has everything to do with hormones. So, Judith, you've been doing this for like 55 years. I mean, when do you know that okay, it's time for a woman to look at, working with her hormones?
Well, just like what you said, it becomes quite obvious because you no longer are functioning in the manner in which you have always functioned. It's like you've got, some people will get like a brain fog, uh, and sometimes it only comes at certain times in their cycle. They may feel perfectly fine 3 weeks out of the month, but for 1 week, they really have a hard time thinking. And of course, we all know about PMS, which certainly our hormones change before our period. And a lot of women experience mood changes or the way their fatigue or their ability to think. I remember me in my 40s thinking there were times where I could hardly make a diagnosis the week before my period. So we all, not all women have this, but a lot of women do, where they can tell that their hormones are changing. Well, as you get closer to menopause, and that usually is occurring in your 40s, you begin to notice this becomes more pronounced. And you begin to think, wow. And sometimes the time goes from maybe a day or two, it can begin to become a week, 10 days. Some women are having it for 2 weeks out of the cycle. And so that it's really affecting their relationships, their ability to work proficiently, to think well. They feel, like you say, some of them are exhausted and they just feel like they can't do their job properly. And relationships begin to suffer too. And so some women need some hormone help periodically in the cycle. And then there eventually comes a point where the periods become kind of erratic and you notice they're not coming at regular intervals like they used to. So you notice that menstrual change begins to occur. And then not only is the menstrual change occurring, but for some women, they're feeling that way throughout the whole month. And for those women, going on some bioidentical hormones all the time is helpful. For others, they only need it during the time just prior to their period. So it varies from woman to woman what you will notice. And then there's some lucky women who never notice anything. They just all of a sudden stop having periods, and they even hardly notice that their symptoms change. I mean, I had a mother and a sister who never noticed any hormonal changes throughout their cycle. They felt the same all the time. It's just the bleeding changed. But I would say that more like about 75 to 80% of American women will notice those changes, and they're aware of what the hormones are doing as far as the cycle is concerned. And so then they usually start seeking help when it becomes a problem for them.
Well,
And
for
they're either
me,
having problems, yeah, with their relationships, or their kids, or their husband, or they're having problems at work. You know, it can be various symptoms that will drive a woman to seek some help.
one of the things you said to me recently, we were having a conversation. You're like, well, I tell all women who are having problems in their marriage to not get divorced until they get their hormones
Amen.
checked. And I was like,
That is
huh,
so true.
yes.
Well,
And
you think about, when do most marriages seem to go through the biggest problem? And it's when women are in their late 40s and in their 50s. That's when the major amount of marriages break up. And I can't help but believe that a tremendous amount of that has to do with the hormonal changes that she's going through at that time as well.
especially the estrogen, this is what I discovered, is the people pleasing hormone. And at 40, it starts
Mhm.
going away. It was like, for me, I think every woman should get, at 40 years old, you get a box in the mail. It's got a big bow on it. You open the box, and there's a pack of bioidentical hormones and a button that says, fuck off, because that's really what happens. Okay. It's just like, no more. I don't have literally, you start losing the um
It's
the
your coping
energy.
skills.
Why is that
It's
connected to
it's
estrogen?
it's very much. I mean, estrogen is what tells the brain to make serotonin, and serotonin, of course, is the coping neurotransmitter that makes us sweet, and we're able to handle stresses that come to us. We just say, okay, well, let's figure this out, and instead of falling apart when a stress happens, you deal with it. And a lot of that has to do with your serotonin. So when estrogen begins to go up and down more dramatically than it did in your younger years, there's a threshold. I mean, this is the way I view it. It's like a threshold that if you drop below that level, that you begin to have estrogen deficiency symptoms, which is low serotonin, irritability, not handling stress very well. Your reactions to people are more, they're not as steady. Uh, One time you'll be okay, and the next time you're not okay. And men that are living with us, or our partners, they don't know how to deal with it, because you're not the same person that you
Yeah.
used to be.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if they look at you like, I remember my husband saying to me during PMS times, I don't know who you are, but I'd like to have my wife back.
Mm,
You are somebody that I don't recognize. And
yeah.
I remember that would just really make me mad, because I'd think, well, if you weren't so irritating, I wouldn't act like this, you know? And yet he's acting the same as he's always acted. It's just my response to him had changed because of my coping skills had changed.
This is such an important part to know. I wish for every woman to not be afraid, because the topic of hormones, everyone has opinions about it. Oh my gosh, menopause is horrifying. It's scary. The hot flashes, the this, the that.
Mm-hmm.
I And it sneaks up because it's sneaky, because it's not like one day, bam. It's a
Yeah, you don't
progress.
realize what's going on.
That's right. And so for me, it really manifested as like not sleeping, not sleeping, not sleeping, not sleeping, and very low, shallow sleep. And then that affects I mean, it just
Oh,
affects,
it affects all your reactions the next day.
right. And I thought, well, this is like, I don't know, it's a spiritual awakening, the pandemic, everyone, well, there's a kind of like a perfect storm that happened. But I
Right.
remember just having less patience, less, and then, and then I thought, maybe about 6 months ago, I said, maybe I should look at this
Mm-hmm.
hormone thing. Maybe I should just get a session with Judith, and she's a hormone specialist. And you had said actually you need to take magnesium glycinate, a high dose of that,
Yeah.
L-theanine, ashwagandha. I was taking some of that at night,
For
and
sleep. Mm-hmm.
for sleep, and that helped actually. Just you said you don't need the bioidentical hormones just yet. You're not there yet. You're not having hot flashes, this and that. And I thought, okay, and it helped. I actually started
Mm-hmm.
sleeping more
Well,
soundly. And I thought,
everybody is deficient in magnesium. I mean, magnesium is a big issue that we really have not addressed very well. Our soils just don't have the magnesium like they used to. So everybody is, and there are 858 reactions, chemical reactions that take place in your body every day, where magnesium is the base for that. If you don't have enough magnesium, your body's not working right, and so you're having a malfunction right there. So when you take something like magnesium glycinate, and I usually recommend about 500 milligrams at bedtime, your body relaxes, and so you're able to. You don't, a lot of the cramps and things that people are having in their hands and their feet and in their legs, all that goes away, and you're able to relax and get down into a better level of sleep. So that's what happened to you when you started taking the magnesium. And then the ashwagandha helps our adrenal gland deal better with cortisol and stress, and it seems to assist in sleep. And then the L-theanine is an amino acid that it calms the mind and helps you. Like if you start getting agitated, L-theanine, about 200 milligram capsule, will just calm the mind down and help you not to feel so agitated. And sometimes it helps people fall asleep too. So
yes.
that's what you did, and you got a little help for a while.
I got a little help, and I was like, that actually made me like, maybe there's something. Maybe this is the hormone thing, Vanessa. Maybe it's like, maybe you should really pay attention to this, because that gave you a result. And then a couple
Mm-hmm.
months later, I noticed I was like, I probably had a hot flash, and I was like, let me go and turn down the heat. And I'm like, the heat is down.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a hot flash. I was like, oh my God, we're
Mm-hmm.
here now. Whoa. I was like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, we're getting the hormones. Like, we're just going to bite the bullet and, all right, do this. And so then there's this whole conversation about, can you explain what the difference is between bioidentical hormones and hormone replacement?
Oh yeah, that's a big one, and there has been a tremendous amount of fear in women's lives
Yeah.
surrounding the use of estrogen. I mean, we have been terrified for decades, um, thinking that if we take hormones, that we're going to get cancer, and it's all going to be our fault because we took those hormones. And so women, I have been either told by their mother or told by other people or told by doctors that not to take that because it's going to cause a cancer and you're going to be sorry if you take those hormones. And so I think breast cancer, female cancers, is one of the biggest fears that women have. Medical fears. We have, we actually die of heart disease. A lot greater statistical evidence or incidence of heart disease takes place with women than it does female cancers. But our fear of the female cancer is so much greater than heart disease. And it's not the number one killer, it's heart disease. So it's interesting that we just have a very inordinate fear of cancer. And it's very much we have related that very much to the taking of hormones. So it's a real stumbling block for women getting help when they are feeling these symptoms and know that they are needing some help. That fear is what keeps them from going in and getting something done. And I mean, that's a whole nother discussion about what does estrogen actually do and what kind of an incidence of cancer does a woman have that's any greater if she takes hormones than if she doesn't. So that's a whole statistical conversation that we could have at some point about what are the risks involved in taking hormones. And I think most women would be very surprised that her risks are not really greater taking hormones than if she's not, because her own body is making bioidentical hormones. I mean, she's taking them whether her body is making them or whether she's taking them from the outside. They're still coming into her body, and her body is having to deal with them. And there are some women genetically that are more at risk from either their own body's production of hormones or taking hormones, that they have some genetic risks that would predispose them to being more susceptible to coming down with cancer if they take hormones than some other women. But I would say that by and large, the vast majority of women going through menopause do not put themselves at any significant statistical risk by taking hormones. And that is not a thought that most women have. And it's unfortunately a lot of doctors who are not specialists in this field, and they don't know the statistics because this is not their field of expertise. They have an opinion just like everybody else has an opinion. And when a woman comes to them and they're not really knowledgeable on this area, that they give them their opinion, and if it is a negative opinion, then the woman accepts that as factual, when in reality it really is just their opinion.
So, I mean,
it's not really based on statistics.
Yeah, I mean, this is why people shouldn't just start taking hormones, but to actually get like a proper diagnosis. I mean, you had a lengthy questionnaire, and I'm sure, you go through and look at these risks and whatnot, like you did with me.
That's right.
But the difference between bioidentical hormones and hormone replacement, there's two different things here.
Well, hormone replacement therapy can be either biosimilar hormones or they can be bioidentical. Those are the two words that determine what the actual structure of the hormone is. Biosimilar hormones are things like birth control pills or something like Premarin, or the hormones that we have had in the past that we used with women to replace estrogen. The bioidentical estrogen is 17-beta estradiol, which is what the ovaries make. The ovaries also make a little estrone, and they make a little estriol. So there's three basic hormones, but the major hormone that works 90% of the time for the receptors in the body is 17-beta estradiol. And we can make that from a soy product. The soy molecule is the closest molecular structure to 17-beta estradiol. You can flip two hydrogen bonds and it turns into 17-beta estradiol. And I have women say, well, if I'm allergic to soy, can I take an estrogen that has been made from soy? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. because it no longer is soy. It has been chemically changed into estrogen. So it's not the soy molecule. So the women don't seem to have any kind of problems. Like those who can't eat soy can take bioidentical hormones. But because we can make it easily from the soy molecule, we do, because it makes it a lot cheaper than if we had to go back to the very beginning and construct a very complicated molecular structure out of nothing. And so that's why they use the soy molecule to make 17-beta-estradiol, but it is exactly the same molecular structure as what the ovaries make. So whether you take it directly from the ovaries, which produce it and they put it into the bloodstream through ducts from the ovaries, and so it goes into the bloodstream, it either can come from the ovaries that way, or when you put it on the skin, it goes into the bloodstream the same way. And the body doesn't know the difference between whether the ovary has made it or whether it has been put onto the skin and put into the bloodstream. They both get into the bloodstream the same way. And so it circulates in the body, and the body does not recognize it as anything foreign or different than what it has always made. And so the body sends it through the same pathways, and it's a much safer way for the body to get a hormone when it's exactly the same hormone that it has always made. Now, when it is structurally different, then we call it a biosimilar, which is what birth control pills are, or other types of estrogen that are not bioidentical. And a lot of traditionally, the hormones that have been given to women have been, up until just recent years, have all been biosimilar, not bioidentical. So that has made a big difference. But there are women who, whether they take biosimilar or whether they take bioidentical, genetically their bodies have a bit of a problem with estrogen, and those are the ones who are more at risk. But we try to mimic what the body does. Like, I try to always give hormones topically, either through a patch or through a gel or through a cream that goes onto the skin, rather than something you take by mouth, because food has to go through the liver 2 times, and in order for it to be digested properly. So if you follow the food route, which is the oral route, and take a pill by mouth, you're now taking it through the liver 2 times. And every time estrogen goes through the liver, it tells the liver to do something. And the body only meant for estrogen to go through the liver 1 time. And as it goes through the liver, it tells the liver to make the amount of blood clotting mechanisms that you need in order to, like if you cut yourself, you have to be able to, your blood has to be able to clot enough so that you don't just continue bleeding. And so sending the estrogen through 1 time makes the proper amount of blood clotting mechanisms. There's about 4 messages that estrogen gives to the liver, and it causes the liver to do certain things. I won't go through all of them because some of them are complicated, but the reason why using something orally, it increases the blood clotting mechanism some, because now you're telling the liver to make twice as much as it would have made if you had only sent it through once. Well, so we try, when we're doing bioidentical hormones, not only to have the molecular structure exactly the same, but also the route in which the hormones are given also need to be bioidentical. So you need to mimic what the body has always done with estrogen, and then you stay out of trouble that you could get into by doing it man's way rather than the way the body has always done it.
Well, that makes
so there's some ways that we can give hormones that make it safer than if we had always done it the traditional way.
That makes a lot of sense with
Yeah,
bioidentical versus.
the body is very smart. I mean, it knows what it's doing. And so if we'll just mimic what it's always done, we stay out of trouble.
So for me, I got on this estradiol patch, and there are different levels that you can choose. 0 point, I think it was 2.5.
Yeah, there's 5 different doses or strengths in the patch.
Yep. And then, 0.375, 0.5, 0.75, and then 1. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
patch that I put on twice a week, so it's easy. Tuesdays and Fridays, I swap that out. I noticed within maybe a few days that I was singing in the shower. And that's when I
Oh,
was like, "Oh, there is something
something's
to this."
different.
Yeah, there's something to this. I don't remember singing in the shower, like just for silly, like da da da. I was like, wow. I had a friend of mine
You were
also this.
happy.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I don't think you can really put a price on not just like happy, but like um I used to feel like, whoa, all right, I got only a certain amount of energy and I got to pick and choose, man. What am I going to do? What
Mm-hmm.
am I going to do today? And I've talked with a lot of women. I mean, I'm a women's empowerment leader. All I do is talk to women all day about the things that really matter. All right. This is
Right,
like my big focus. And you're also in this arena, women's health.
right.
Um, and so the conversations that when I share this with women about like looking at or just the feeling of like not dread but like oh, there's only so much energy I have, so what am I going to do, and like comparing that to what I used to be able to do was such a defeating feeling.
Well,
And
Vanessa,
that goes away. That's gone. And I'm just going to share a few of my results because I think it's important, when we connect like the what we're talking about and the what it does as a result. Having the brain being able to function and do spreadsheets and not having that overwhelming, that's not dread, it's just this feeling of defeat. Or I was talking to
well,
another woman who's like, I've been take some women are in their 70s and they're still taking the bioidentical
yeah,
hormones. One woman said to me, "Oh, my sister, said you should get off that. It's been so long." And so she got a bit afraid. She got off of it and she said, "I lost my." She's like, "My brain went away." She goes, "I can't live like that."
right.
Boom, jump
And
back on.
sometimes it's hard for it to come back. I have women that go in maybe in their 65 or 70, and they go in to see their doctor, and their doctor goes, "Why are you still on hormones?" And so they scare them and they come off of it. And then a year later, their daughter's bringing them in because they are having dementia problems. And I can't necessarily turn the clock back after a year and make it all go away again. So it is a big decision, when women stop like that. And the other thing I wanted to say before, and I know you have a lot that you want to say, but menopause comes at a very inconvenient time for a woman. She is usually, she's got teenage kids. She's got a busy career, let's say. She is got parents that are starting to need help. Uh, she's she is being pulled in so many different directions because she's at a very competent time in her life when she's at her best. And then suddenly menopause hits, and all of these things begin to fall apart. And it is a real crisis.
Oh my, listen, I burned down everything, got divorced, burned down the business, moved. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, let me tell you what, when I say I radically reinvented my life, I had no v- idea that this could be a possible reason. Okay. Because you know,
Mm-hmm.
it was not even in my mind because it was such a gradual thing now that I'm looking back on it, from on the other side
Well,
of it.
women become unhappy. They become unhappy and they start making big decisions about their lives. And if they don't know that hormones could have something to do. All they can think to do is, let's change my life because I'm unhappy,
Yeah.
and not realize that maybe that unhappiness is coming from inside because of hormonal issues.
And at 40 years old, this is when it start the hormone, the estrogen starts to diminish. This is why people say, "Oh, 40 is like a light switch," you know. I used to joke
Mm-hmm.
around with my friends. I mean, we swear a little bit, but we used to say, we got no more fucks left to give. Like nope, the delivery man forgot to deliver. Like we don't, nope, don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really what I look at was exactly that, trying to get rid of stress, anything that brought me stress, because there was just
Mm-hmm.
no capacity
You weren't
to.
coping with stress like you used to.
That's right. And not knowing that this was, I mean,
Why?
you resist it. I think as a woman, it's just like, oh no, we're not there. Like we're like we're like, especially entrepreneurs. Okay. Like we're like
Mm-hmm.
superhuman, this is no, 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 no. So this is
Mm-hmm.
estrogen we're talking about. What about progesterone and testosterone?
Well, estrogen uh, runs a woman's body. I mean, that's her go juice, and it really has a lot to do with how her brain functions and how she thinks. But estrogen has to be balanced with another female hormone, which is progesterone. And you don't want estrogen to ever become really dominant in the body to the point where it's not balanced properly with progesterone, because progesterone helps us to feel calmer. It helps us to sleep. I mean, for some women, giving them progesterone just mellows them out and they feel so much better. Others, we only use it just to balance estrogen so it doesn't become dominant and a problem because of its estrogen dominance. Because everything has to be in balance in the body. And then testosterone, of course, we always think of it as the male hormone, but women have to have a certain amount of testosterone in their body in order to have proper, I would say, energy, optimism, sexual desire, sexual response, muscle development. I mean, we have to have a certain amount of testosterone in order for those areas to function well in our lives. And when you're 20, you probably have twice the amount of testosterone as you do when you're 40. And then by the time you hit 50, and I would say menopause usually occurs between 50 and 51. That's the average age. But for about 10 years prior to that, there is hormone fluctuations. And so by the time menopause occurs, if a woman has already lost 50% of her testosterone at age 40, by the time estrogen really goes away, let's say at 50, and then everything just bottoms out. Both testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen, they all just kind of are at a low ebb, and a woman does not feel good. And she's not performing at the level that she is expected to perform at. Both her job, her husband, her kids, her parents, everybody is expecting her to perform at a level of high proficiency, which is where she's always been. And suddenly now she can't meet up to those expectations. And a lot of women turn to alcohol at this time because it de-stresses them, helps them maybe fall asleep at night, although it makes them wake up later on in the night. But most women, when they come to me, they're drinking a lot of alcohol. And that's one of the first things I have to do is get them off of their alcohol consumption. Otherwise, I can't fix the hormone problems that they're having.
Well, somewhere I
So
read that, the body at 40, a woman's body does not uh, process alcohol. I stopped drinking 2 years ago. My body, I was just like, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're done with that.
yeah, you knew there was something
Oh,
that it was causing a problem with.
yeah, it was just like not needed. Um, I wasn't trying to cover anything up by drinking. There was nothing I wasn't facing except I think this idea of hormones. And
Yeah.
so one of the things though is that I'm curious about, because I have some colleagues who are taking estrogen and also testosterone and progesterone. I have
Mm-hmm.
some friends, colleagues that have tried the hormone replacement. They stopped, and then they kind of hear about my experience with the bioidenticals, and they're like, Give me her number, please." Like, give me this woman's
and
telephone number. I need
and
to do something, because they experience this same. Like, I had one friend tell me, I just open up all these tabs on my computer and I look at them, and the whole day goes by and nothing gets done.
yeah.
It's just, and have
Well,
needing to have a
not
nap every afternoon. And I mean, the energy, the happiness, the energy, I think it's almost like the confidence. It's not confidence. It's like, oh, there I am. Oh yeah, I remember who I am now. I know what to, like,
yeah,
can deal
right.
with.
I'm
Uh,
back. That's the word I hear. Oh, I'm back again.
yeah, yeah. What,
That's
but
the way women feel.
what about this? Because going into this, what I decided was just, okay, if I don't like it, I can just stop. I'm going to try it. I'm going
Hmm.
to confront this fear of myself, that I have about it. I'm just going to try it. What's the worst thing that can happen? If I don't like it, I will just stop. Just try it for a month.
Sure.
That's how I looked at the decision. But
Yeah,
there's
it's not
no,
a forever decision. It can be just a temporary decision if you want to.
yeah, I'm all for like problem solving. But the idea of being able to test your hormones, can you talk to us a little bit about this?
Yeah, that's a real problem. And a lot of women hear, "Oh, go in and have your hormones tested." And so they go in and they ask their gynecologist to test their hormones or whatever. And they go in and have a blood test, and the tests come back, and the doctor says, "Well, there's nothing wrong with your hormones. You're fine." And it's very misleading, because every single in your reproductive years, every single day, your estrogen levels and your progesterone levels are different. And so it just all depends on what day you go in and have your hormones tested as to what the test comes back. So when women are in like their 40s and they're still in the reproductive time of life, I don't depend upon the blood levels to determine whether I'm going to treat a woman or not. It, it you find it out by listening to them, and you listen to their symptoms. When are those symptoms occurring? Are they only happening at certain times? Or is it every single day that this is the way she's feeling? And so I encourage women to chart for maybe a couple of months their cycles, and write down the days when they're not feeling good, so that you can see it in black and white. Yeah, this is when I'm having difficulty, is right here. And so when you go in to see the doctor, you're able to be a good historian and say, yeah, I feel terrible at ovulation, or I feel terrible the week before my period, or I feel this way all the time. It doesn't make any difference. Or sometimes the symptoms, I have them all the time, but they just get worse the week before my period. And then maybe for a week out of the whole month, I feel like myself. And it's usually the week after their period is over until they get to ovulation. And that week is when you feel like, oh, okay, I'm my normal self again. And then it all starts all over again once ovulation takes place. So there's a real roller coaster that a woman can feel like that she's on. And a lot of women are diagnosed as bipolar during this time, and told that they are mentally ill,
Wow.
or that they have some bipolar disease, because there's such a fluctuation in how they feel. And they get diagnosed very erroneously as having a bipolar disorder, when all it is just hormones. And when you fix the hormones, she's no longer crazy. I put that in quotation marks, because a lot of women feel that they're crazy, and then they're treated as if they're crazy, and sometimes they're diagnosed as if they are. And
That's
that is
wild.
another big drawback that happens. And when women come in to see me, and I listen, and I just go, oh, well, this is just hormones, they'll just burst into tears and just bawl because they've been to so many doctors and they've been told that that there's something mentally wrong with them. And the relief of knowing that I'm not insane, that this really is just a hormonal issue, they just sob in my office. And I always feel so bad for them because they have undergone months and sometimes years of being told that there's something mentally wrong with them. Their husbands are telling them that, because they see this huge change in them. This is not the same woman I married. And so there's a lot of fear and misunderstanding that surrounds the menopausal time.
Wow. And
I wanted to also say, you asked me about the 3 hormones. If a woman is ovulating on a regular basis, she's making 2 weeks of progesterone that she makes after she ovulates. But when the periods get erratic, then she may not be producing the progesterone like she should. So if a woman is having regular cycles but she's needing some estrogen, then sometimes I can just give her estrogen at certain times in the cycle. But if she's having irregular periods, then I usually have to give both estrogen and then cyclic progesterone. So after talking with somebody, I can tell what they need.
yeah, that's
And we
actually
can usually choose
that's what did
what to
it for
do.
me because it was clear that you can't really test for hormones because every day the hormones change.
Yeah,
And I think
they do.
doctors, I was just talking to a girlfriend yesterday. Um, she's on all of it: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Or maybe she's not on the progesterone, but she noticed a huge difference with her sexual drive with testosterone, with just being able to
Now,
lose
that
weight.
one can be tested. That one is correct when you test it because it doesn't go up and down. It just stays the same, basically. It kind of diminishes as the years go by, but it doesn't fluctuate wildly through the cycle. So testosterone, if a woman is having a lot of symptoms of low testosterone, we can test that, and I can tell a woman if she needs to be on supplemental testosterone or not.
Okay,
So
so
that
that
one
can
is
be tested
different
with
than
that one.
estrogen and progesterone. Mm-hmm.
Testosterone can be tested with a blood test.
Yes.
Okay. Um,
So if she's got symptoms of low testosterone and we test her and sure enough the testosterone levels are low, many times she'll feel better with some supplemental testosterone. And if that's her only problem, if her only problem is the sexual stuff, then we can just give her testosterone and she's okay. She may not need estrogen and progesterone. But what seems to happen is all about the time that her testosterone is getting low, a lot of women during those 10 years prior to menopause will also notice that they're having a lot of fluctuation in both estrogen and progesterone as well.
yeah. So it's super interesting because I started tracking my menstrual cycle because I was used to always just being like on like that. People used to call me a
Right.
force of nature, man. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
like I could reach into this deep well and just grab ambition on one hand and drive on the other and go.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a
Mm-hmm.
couple of years ago, it's like you go to the well and then there ain't nothing in there, man. I'm like, wow, what do I do with
Yeah,
this? Wow,
so
surrender to
true.
this, and I didn't know if it was like, it's a spiritual awakening or something.
Uh-huh.
I did not know what to call this. And so
Yeah.
maybe a year or two after that, I said, okay, I'm going to like get serious about, because I was tracking my menstrual cycle because I was curious about my creativity. That's what
Mm-hmm.
actually did it for me. I was like, when during my, and I was, following this course on a woman's cycle and how it affects our thinking, our creativity, our intuition, all of these things.
Oh,
I was just, that's what
you
made
bet
me
your life.
actually, yeah, start tracking it and looking at, how I felt and my creative productivity. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was on track. I'm like, oh, everything's fine. Okay. It's not normal to think, Vanessa. So I told myself that you're going to be always 100% creative, like every single day of the week of the month. That
But you
thinking is
wanted to know when were
off.
going to be your best times.
Yes, and so that's what got me to start tracking my menstrual cycle, and then once it started being like, oh, 5 days early, whoop, 7 days late, I was like, okay, this
Right.
is real. This is okay. Something's happening here.
And you
So
don't know
let's.
what to expect because the cycle is no longer regular. And so you're completely thrown off of your game because nothing's reliable.
That's
You
right.
never know what's going to happen.
It's like your body runs you now. You're at the mercy of like, well, can we go? Are we
Right.
planning this thing? It's like, I don't know what's going to happen here. You're just kind of like, whoo,
Right.
it's a crapshoot. It's who knows how I'm going to feel, and I
Right.
think having that
And who knows when I'm going to bleed? That's the other thing that drives women crazy.
yeah,
I mean, just we have a tendency to plan our lives kind of around our cycle, particularly if you have a heavy, painful flow. A lot of women will gauge their vacations or different tasks that they're going to do according to where they're going to be in their cycle. And when you can no longer do that, it becomes very chaotic.
yeah, absolutely. You're kind of like, who knows? You're governed by, the body it's doing its thing, and you're kind of at its mercy. And
Right.
so
That is
having,
so true. You're the tail. No longer is the tail wagging. The dog is having a wagging tail. The wagging tail is determining what the dog is doing, and that's opposite of how it should be.
yeah, it's so that right there is a massive game changer. Um, just to and also having the like, I mean, I got so much stuff done. I was like, okay, we're gonna launch this new funnel, and we're gonna need our brain for this one. So go, Vanessa. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
that day I was like, hey, Judith, let's go on the hormones. Let's go. Let's do it, because
Mm-hmm.
I knew that there was something to it, and I'm really glad that I did.
Well,
Because
and I just
it's a
remember
game
asking you
changer.
about three questions, and you answered all three of them in the affirmative. And I went, "You're right, Vanessa. It is time for you to begin your hormones." You answered those questions correctly, and it was like, "Okay, it's time."
Yeah. And
And it's
so,
obvious.
yeah, I sleep, I had 9.5 hours of sleep last night.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it really is. I tell people all the time, yeah, 8, 10, 9, 8 hours, no problem. Not waking up, this idea of like for years, I would wake up at 2, 3 in the morning, stay up for a couple hours, eat a sandwich, watch some
Yeah.
YouTube videos. I mean, like, I'm awake, ain't going back to sleep, may as
Yeah.
well do something. I mean, for years. So, to have the sleep, wow, it's amazing. And I
And
don't think,
the one thing that excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
well, I'm just saying, for entrepreneurs, especially for women entrepreneurs, you need your
Hmm.
brain, man. You need your sleep. You need your brain to
Oh
function
yeah.
well. You need to be able to make decisions, have the energy, not be overwhelmed with
That's
all these small
right.
little things that are, the thousands of decisions that we make every day. So, um, yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
The two big things that women say to me when they come in is, I've had my hormones tested, and my doctor says that I don't have a problem. And I said, well, let's talk and we'll find out if you actually have a problem or not. The second thing they say to me is, I know there's something wrong with my thyroid, but I've had it tested several times, and my doctor tells me there's nothing wrong with my thyroid. But I really think that there is. And those are the two most common comments that I get from women, because I don't usually see women until after they've seen quite a few doctors who have not been able to help them with their problem, and they eventually end up in my office. But I think those are the two biggest fallacies. And sometime we should talk about thyroid and how it affects this time in your life. It is very tightly connected to menopause also, and how you're feeling and how you function. So that would be another great topic for us to talk about at some time.
Well, I'm happy to talk about it now or later. It's up to you. But I mean, if that's one of the biggest reasons why women come in thinking that their thyroid is off, how does the
Yeah.
hormones affect it?
Well, it seems, the endocrine system is very tightly bound together. I try to, in my mind, when I'm thinking of it, I think of it like a child's mobile that you put over the crib. And if the little baby reaches up and grabs the tiger, well, the lion and the bear and everything else also move. It's like you can't do something in isolation with the endocrine system. It's all very tightly bound together. So if one area, like the ovaries, begins to start failing and not functioning like it used to, it greatly affects our adrenal gland, our thyroid gland, even, how we metabolize our sugar and our weight gain. And, so there's a huge correlation that goes along in the endocrine system where everything gets out of balance. And one of the things that has to take place at menopause, if you're going to properly treat the woes that are happening to a woman at that time, is you have to address all of the endocrine system and make sure that all of it is in balance, or there's still a lot of symptoms that are happening that just maybe estrogen or progesterone can't take care of. So it's a whole bunch of little things that get out of balance, and they all have to be put back into balance again before the woman feels whole. And many, many doctors do not understand that, and they don't realize that I think of it like tweaking. You have to tweak it here and tweak it there and tweak it there. It has to do with neurotransmitters. It has to do with vitamins. It has to do with minerals. It has to do with each one of the endocrine hormones. So there's a lot to be considered when you think of putting a woman's body back into balance again.
Yeah.
Which is the reason why I called my practice Perfect Balance, because that's what it takes. Everything has to be back spinning in homeostasis, which means it's all perfectly balanced. And then a woman feels she can say the words, okay, I'm back again. I'm
Hallelujah.
back.
Hallelujah.
And I'm able to do what I need, but I can do what I need to do with my life again.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's what,
I'm so grateful for you doing this work and for taking the time to share here on the
oh,
podcast.
it is thrilling for me, Vanessa. I love what I do because women are so important. We are the foundation of society. When we fall apart, everything falls apart. We're holding together so many issues in society, and so we're just the foundational cog that makes everything work, right? And so when we go out of whack, everything around us goes out of whack, and there's just problems everywhere. So, when mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. That's, that little saying is based on reality. And so I feel like that this job that I get the privilege of being able to do is working with women and helping them restore their balance again and come back and become the powerful, influential people that they are. It's just a joy for me to be able to put a woman back together again to where she feels like I'm back and I'm able to function like I'm supposed to function. It just brings great joy to my heart. And I will tell you, it's a very rewarding job because most women are extremely grateful for what you do for them. I mean, they are so happy that this has happened to them. So you get a lot of positive feedback from my job. And so it makes it a joy. And it's one of the reasons why I've continued to practice long after I probably should have retired and quit doing this. But it's something I just really like to do. And I love the interaction with women. And I just think we're very special people. And it's a privilege for me to get to work so closely, in that capacity with other women.
And a capacity that affects so much of our lives. It's
Oh,
no
yeah.
it's no wonder your work is in such high demand. How can people find out more about working with you, your office or any
Well,
phone? How do you do it?
it used to be that my practice was limited to just women who lived in, the Reading or the Mount Shasta area, which is where I live, because you would have to come into the office and talk with me. But COVID changed all that. And now, because my practice is basically a consulting practice, I'm able to do it on the phone or through Zoom or however we want to do it. So it broadens the group of women that I can work with than just local women. A lot of my patients have moved away from California. As California has changed, they've wanted to move to other states. And it's been nice that they don't have to give up their women's health care provider when they move, because we can still have telephone appointments, and we can, keep the relationship going and continue with their hormones so that they don't have to start over brand new again with another provider who may not understand their situation and have gone through the years with them that I've been able to stay with them. And so that has proved to be a real blessing. And so more and more women are finding me through the computer, and you can, there is a shortcut into getting into my practice. It's called Perfect Balance Healthcare. People can go to my website, and there's a questionnaire that they can fill out, which makes it possible then for us to have a conversation, and I can ask them, different details about the information that they gave me on the questionnaire so that we can zero in on what's going on. So I have an email, which is perfectbalance2632@gmail.com, which is the email for my business, or they can go to the Perfect Balance Healthcare and get in that way too.
Awesome. I will make sure to put those links here in the show notes, both for the podcast and here on YouTube. Judith, it has been such a pleasure. I highly recommend any woman who's biting their
Well,
nails.
You've been a joy to work with, Vanessa. You're so bright, and you're so you understand yourself and what you're capable of, and it's been a real joy just to see you prosper so well with the use of the hormones. It's been delightful to see that take place.
Oh, I am seconding that. I'm so grateful and happy, and it really does, for me anyways, kicked in really pretty quickly. And I'm certainly grateful for my brain working, my sleep, my overall mood, being able to tackle things that I would shy away from just because I didn't have the energy. I mean, that's done. That's gone. That's over. Hallelujah. Thank you, God. So I highly recommend, if anyone's on the fence.
I want to say something. Yeah. You were an easy fix. Oh. You are a very confident woman that is very self-aware, and you were an easy fix. Not everyone, does it work as quickly, as fast, or as uncomplicated as you were. There are times when it takes months for us to zero in and get the balance right. Because some women come very broken. And then there's others that are just having a few problems. So each woman's journey is very unique and different than somebody else's. So I
Yeah.
don't want women to become discouraged if their journey takes longer than yours did,
Well,
because
I have to agree with that. It just having this conversation, just tuning in, if somebody's listening here to it, is,
mhm,
that's really what I wanted to create with you today, was a space for this conversation to happen around the fear surrounding hormones, and a lot of the resistance that women have of like, no, no, it's not happening to
yes,
me. I'm like unstoppable. I'm this, I'm that. You might
right.
want to take a peek, like really take it, like find out, is basically my recommendation, because you know having access to energy, having your brain function, have being able to make snap decisions, and having, I mean, it's indispensable as an entrepreneur. You
Well,
can't really
Vanessa, it's
function without it.
wonderful that you have taken your podcast and are using it in so many ways to help women. And I just have to really congratulate you for taking this platform that you have to even tackle the subject of hormones and how it can affect a woman. And so I just really take my hat off to you and I congratulate you. And I just admire what you're doing, because this is a huge subject that affects so many women. And there's a lot of ignorance around it just because we don't understand ourselves, our bodies, or what can happen. So thank you for doing this for women. It's a huge thing, and I just really appreciate you taking your time, your podcast, and your wisdom to do this.
Oh, well,
You're going to help a lot of women.
I hope so. That's the intention. And thank you, Judith Crabtree. Thank you for any of the listeners here who took the time. And here's to taking your power back now, overcoming fear and thriving. My name is Vanessa Simpkins, and we will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye.